snipe Ezreal's left, right, and center with those Zenith Blades.
It's also a good matchup into Rakan, right? And that combined, it does make sense. Downside of this is that if everything goes right for DRX, Teddy isn't really allowed to play the game once people start grouping up, because playing Varus into Rakan, Volibear, Nah is not fun. And you don't have a Fresh, you don't have a Tom Kench, you have a Leona. Teddy's going to say goodbye as he Zenith Blades into the enemy backline. Kana and Kaz diving with him. And then it's up to Teddy and Faker to kind of try and keep themselves alive for as long as possible. And as a whole, this T1 comp yet again feels like a comp where if you don't get a lead and you're not able to just straight up trample your opponent, you're going to have a really rough time. However, this comp does trample extraordinarily well.
Yeah, it should. And the laning phase should certainly belong to T1, but I feel like it's dive comp versus dive comp, and one of them has an Ezreal, the other has a Varus. So who's going to survive in the backline most likely? And look, if on paper, you're going to give that to the Ezreal every day of the week. However, some side lane possibilities here. Hecarim still very, very strong. Pyosik finally going to bring out the Volibear for this match. Kingen has been brilliant on the Gnar so far. Solka is desperate to get some redemption on his Orianna. If DRX win this, I mean, man, the story moving into Game 5 is just going to be absolutely fantastic. And I think if you have a look at the drafts down the line, DRX should have an advantage if they can stem the bleeding early. We're looking forward to seeing whether they can do that. As once again, T1 on the red side. When they've been wearing their team colors, they haven't been as successful here today.
Oh my god, Halo Blades. That is not something you see very often, as normally we've already pointed out the lethal tempo variation, but most common, of course, is the Comet. Lethal, or rather Halo Blades, of course, in terms of early short trades, it's insane. And once you have your W and you can use get blight stacks stacked quickly rather on your opponent, I can't imagine your early game trading power is just disgusting. Wonder if he went for Inspiration second, or if he did go for Mana Flow Band, because otherwise, until he gets some, okay, he did go, went for the cookie, so not for Mana Flow. I actually expect that to maybe impact a little bit until he gets his tier stacked up, which he should be able to pick up on his second back. First back, of course, reserved for a nice serrated Dirk. Otherwise, no real surprises here, I'd say, in terms of runes. And I do think that DRX, as we look across these games, in terms of cohesive drafts, have definitely edged out T1. I think that the last T1 composition was very clear-cut. The first one was very conservative, a lot of power picks, but the second one especially just felt like T1 just drafted himself into a hole, and then DRX were able to play that one out really, really nicely. First Volibear pick, and Volibear I think is in a great spot at the moment, has really, really nice setup, and post 6 DRX are a force to be reckoned with.
Not to mention he's gone the Battle Bear this time around as well. It is going to be Press the Attack. Last time we did see this one come out, I believe it was the Predator picked up by Cuz, who just showed us how strong the Volibear can be as far as early game ganking power. This works out a little bit differently, as Sunlight going to be procced there, and you can see that, you know, this is a lane that's going to be very, very difficult for Bao and Becca. I don't think, like, they shouldn't be dying, right, just because there is a lot of safety in this lane with the mobility that they have, but still shouldn't be able to win out any straight-up trades, as Carrier looks for the Zenith Blade as soon as he hits that level 2, and this is a full wave. It seems to be pushed towards this Ezreal Rakan.
And we also have Kaz pathing towards bot side, so if they get a lot of poke and actually land down some meaningful damage, Bao and Becca actually might be in for a rough time. So they need to be really respectful, don't trade too much, just let them shove you in. This early on, the Varus isn't really going to be able to reliably take off plates. And these trades are never going to go well for you, as we see here.
Yeah.
Pyosik will be able to, or he's pathing towards top side rather. I'd expect this matchup early on for the Akali to be fairly rough. It's once you get some abilities right, maybe once you hit 6 and you are playing against a really squishy Gnar, you're fine. But early on, it's melee into range, and you don't really have the all-in pressure yet. And it's just free grass box for Kingen.
Stacking him up for the moment, trying to find as many boomerangs as possible, and as you say, it's going to be illustrated in the CS gap. Faker also able to, you know, stay ahead in this lane. It is going to balance out, as he's just going to give Cuz an opportunity to lock down the bottom side. Rift Scuttler, Pyosik, decent win rate so far on the Volibear in the jungle. This, of course, comes mostly from a year ago. But yeah, he's very practiced on the bear, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can get done in this game, because this is a pick that we were expecting to have a bit more power in this series, especially based on what Cuz has already showed us in their Halma Life series.
Becca freezing the wave there, or attempting to at the very least, making sure that Bao is in a good position and they can just hold it there, put some pressure on T1, maybe threaten with a Pyosik gank. They'll be able to get the back in the very end. Not sure whether or not they were able to actually get it, and the trading is inconsequential. As Kana, you know, you got the counter pick, and I am gonna have faith in T1 to not pick an Akali in a pivotal game in your playoffs for no reason. But the early game, as already said, as expected, not great. I think once Cuz pays attention, once you hit level 6, it might look completely different, but for right now, it is very much Kingen in full control of this lane. Fortunately for T1, Faker and Teddy Carrier are the ones that are controlling the other lane, so Cuz not playing without any priority, which is generally very unpleasant as a jungler.
Absolutely. So the Hecarim should be fine. The Akali, maybe not so much, as you can see, over double the CS in favor of Kingen right now at this point in time. Bao and Becca still struggling against this combo, but Bao has been just picking up the opportunistic CS where he can find it, and has actually created himself a slight advantage, in fact. Despite not exactly having lane control. Faker missing that bubble there, but not going to get punished, and here is going to be the first Drake going over to the Hecarim. Not much of an answer here, as you can see. Kana immediately teleporting back to this lane. And Kingen probably going to be doing the same thing as well on the other side whenever he would like to.
He doesn't even need to teleport yet. Just the level advantage and just the control he has at the moment is enough to zone away Kana. We will be getting a relevant Drake this game as well, which is very, very nice, as we have actually been treated decently well here tonight. Only had a single Cloud Soul, and that one was, in the end, still enough. As I wonder how this matchup is going to go post-6. It's not a matchup we've seen for a really long time. Akali, even though she was changed/buffed, has not really seen the forefront in the LCK as of yet. But it is a champion where we know if you ever get a lead, doesn't feel very fun or interactive for the opponents. Now, Nezreal has a little bit more ways of dealing with it, but it's still always something that you're going to have to play so respectful to.
Yeah, this backline dive on both sides of the rift is in fact very, very scary. Imagining the Na and Volibear together just launching themselves towards the backline is going to be very, very rough. Now Cuz finds Pyosik inside his jungle. As Faker once again not going to find the bubble. Shockwave comes down this time as the Ignite is actually utilized very early. Meanwhile, a fight on the top side of the map as well. Onslaught of Shadows comes down. Kana from over the wall, and the execution is absolutely perfect to get the first blood for the Akali. So necessary, as well as now Kingen in some trouble. But he should be all right as Faker lands that bubble, actually flashes on top of him, picks up the barrier, as well as now Sulker's the one that has to run. The flash over, Faker finds the solo kill, but it's answered in the end as well.
It's action all over the map. Bot lane, fighting, mid lane, solo kills traded, top lane, working out beautifully for T1 in the end. And the kill does go over to Kana, who so desperately needed it. Now in mid lane, it's not as good of a trade. Faker getting a little hyphy there with the amount of shots that were available, and like, do I really need to go for a solo kill? Not necessarily, but I'm going to go for it anyway. But I'm pretty sure that Cuz wasn't 6, smited away that Krug, then hit 6. I want to double check it here. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
if
you're
he doesn't
right.
hit the smite on the big Krug, or is it just even the little ones? No, he needs to hit the smite, because then you have ult advantage and it's just a free kill.
And it might have actually been very similar for Pyosik as well, as they had been farming at almost exactly the same clip. So, winning out on that 50-50, so important here for T1 towards the top side. As we have a look at Faker pressing as many summon a spell buttons as he could possibly find.
Yeah, and makes a little bit of sense, knowing that the Shockwave has already been invested and Faker sees the barrier. Unfortunately, doesn't really get as much value from the second flash, still in the middle of a minion wave.
Well, Cuz gonna save Faker here in the mid lane as well. Ulti is utilized there by Pyosik, but they didn't actually wait before the Shockwave was available. It now just comes off cooldown. So it didn't quite have the damage in order to take down the Zoe, as Carrier is just going to help Faker come through here, look to pick out all of these minions, get himself a reset that is not going to be quite as punishing as Canna starting to step forward in this lane, as you can see.
Herald is a really big one. Both teams are collapsing.
Yep, in they go. There's Carrier flashing on forward. Onslaught of Shadows comes down and Solka completely removed from the fight. Finds a couple with the Shockwave, but he is too far out of position. The rest of DRX say, well, I guess we'll take a Constellation blue buff and hope things are going to be okay. Chains of Corruption land onto Becca. Quickness utilized. He will get himself out of the way. So T1 winning out on this one in the end, and we do have actually Faker picking up the Eye of the Herald. Can use that wherever he would like.
Things are not okay for DRX here. They're losing out repeatedly, and in of itself, giving up objectives isn't a huge problem, but giving over kills to these solo lane carries on the side of T1 really is, because T1, when fed this composition, warps into a super oppressive 1-4 composition where you have Kana in the side lane, no one can deal with him because he got a couple of kills early, and then the poke from Faker and Teddy is not fun to play to. Sorka finds some nice sidesteps, but the real problem is just the all-around positioning. Can't be that far up with your bot lane, is slower on the rotation, because even if you do like hit a big ultimate there, it doesn't matter, there's no follow-up. You need to actually be able to have the rest of your team and respect appropriately. Not the case there, and it's not end of the world. Again, the wombo combo is insane. It might find a kill here.
Yeah, we're looking for it. Kyoshik's going to dive on top of Carrier right now, keeping himself alive for a while, but the exhaust is going to be put down. Solar Flare comes through as well. They trade 1 for 1, and now Teddy's looking for more. The teleport coming through to help out. And there's a horse down here at the same time. Piercing Arrow will connect. The Rampage just as a drive-by. And now Faker gets to come on through, throw down all those summoners with the W, and T1 will mop it up.
And DRX looked so good in the games that they won, but now they're just getting outmatched all over the map. Kana also having to use his ultimate defensively. Sorka going for roam. DRX want to make a cross-map play.
Yep, they're looking to see whether they can get up here. Let's hope that the Shroud's going to be available. A Shuriken backflip to get out of the way of the UFO. And Solka will come through, deny that minion wave. Shockwave's going to be flashed, and Kana should make it to relative safety, but will have to give up control of his turret.
See the pinks go down towards the mid lane. T1 says, Faker, shove that lane and throw down the Herald that you still have in your inventory. But that turnaround on the bot lane, man, I know we're going to see a replay of that, and I really want to, because you see the knowledge of Carrier and Teddy that they can actually turn this around, that this is not something that you're going to get away with just trading a kill. And it's because these double ultimates are available, right? So the damage coming through here is not nearly enough. There comes the Solar Flare. And then the W-empowered Q from Varus is just...
it's gross.
Disgusting. And this is the power spike that you're looking for. Getting a couple of kills this early is really nice. As Cuz says, that's fine. I'll tank the turret. No problem whatsoever. Bao has no amount of skill in the world. Unfortunately, they can outplay that. And the topside play doesn't work out for DRX.
Yeah. So the response is not going to be there. They just lose 3. As we get a look in on Teddy, as Kingan's just going to get a solo kill. So I guess in a delayed sense, the top lane play does work out, as now Kingan will be able to get a whole bunch of plates as well, unless he wants to deny the entire minion wave, in which case he's just going to back away. So Kana struggling a little bit in this matchup. It does certainly feel like Kingan has been the better man as far as the 1v1.
And this is with a counter pick, right? Like, it's not something you get away with. Kingan, as you say,
crushed it straight up.
It's sad, but I think in this scenario, it might truly be better top lane doesn't win. Which is unfortunate reality, because we all know better jungler always wins. That's like rule number 1 of League.
Yeah, Kingan actually has the mistake as well, where his name starts with K and I, and there is another top laner that suffers from that particular issue himself here in the LCK.
Yeah, where you get the gold lane, you get the solo kills, but it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. Because
there are Fremont coming, and you're fed, but you don't have Meganar, and there's a lot of damage available.
Yep, and now he's going to be put into the blender. Kana gets underneath the turret, and you don't even need perfect execution to lock that one down. It's just too many strong members on T1's side. It's just a little bit unfortunate for Kingan. And
DRX are getting out-tempoed across the map, and this is T1 playing a lot more like their last game rather, where they're consistently looking for plays, trying to force. And there they had a comp that actually was built to do that. I think this comp to a lesser extent it's more just T1 trying to force the issue, use the priority. This is, I think, the third dive that we've seen of them this game, where they're just continuously looking for openings. And this is where the DRX comp is weak. So as a DRX fan, yes, they're 2.5k gold behind, but it is not the end of the world. Like in game number 2, or game number 3 rather, there is still the angle of finding the big ultimate. And the team comp from T1, the only front line is carry out to a lesser extent Cuz, so if you can actually find those backline and blow them up, still possible here, but considering how the last game went, Atlas, I'm not very optimistic.
No, it is certainly a worry. That being said, this is DRX territory. They're going to have to do some vintage DRX in order to get themselves out of this one. As up towards the top side comes Cuz. Kingan's got a huge target on his head. And Cuz is just saying, well, you can try and escape if you can. Nara is going to get him out of there, or at least attempt to, as Canna is going to avoid the UFO. The wallop is going to be good though, and Sulker is going to come on forward. Watch out for the orb. Let's see whether the shockwave is going to connect. Canna's got a blast cone there and will utilize it in order to create enough space. Now Carrier, possibly out of position, but Pyosik is going to be distracted by a Rift Scuttler, and Faker is going to finish off the outer turret in the mid lane.
It's the best turret to go down for Zoe, because now all of a sudden the mid lane is dangerous territory.
Oh, speaking of which, Faker looking for it onto Sulker here. Prowler's Claw comes out as well. Shockwave does find 2 this time. Faker has to flash to get himself out. He waits, has the blast going. The dissonance isn't enough damage. But that is definitely a very friendly move as Pyosik looks to try and catch some backs, but he won't find it.
I think he was trying to look for the cheeky kill on Faker there. Just like backing in the brush,
throw
my lightning. But unfortunately not enough. Might be able to pick up a play here on the bot side. That's unfortunately the cleanse forced, and that means any subsequent ultimate or a Xenoblade from Teddy means very unfortunate things for Bao, who has not had the greatest of series. I think that Teddy and Carrier has also kind of leveled up as the series has progressed, and this has been kind of a common theme for T1, with, ironically enough, the exception being Kana, who's had a bit more rough as the steal attempt comes through.
And Pyosik just has to leave. Cuz says thanks for the leash, and that's just the state of the jungle at this point in time. Unfortunate for Pyosik. He almost got away with it, and Cuz, you can see the big grin on his face as well. The opposite is true for Pyosik.
And this is what we saw in the Live Sandbox series as well, where DRX, they get desperate and they start making plays like this. They don't have prio, they don't have the vision, they don't have the setup.
Oh, can Keenan find it again? Canna is able to get that backflip to get him out of the way, and now it decides to go back in. There's a perfect execution. Locks it down. Turns it straight onto the face of Keenan. However, he's still going to fall down. Pyosik does have the ulti button, presses it and says, outplay this. And Canna's not going to be able to. 1 for 1, but more resources needed for DRX.
Nagari might have left the LCK, but his spirit lives on. Kana, he just needs a death, maybe 2, and then that's when the solo kills start coming through, okay?
All right, he's got 2 deaths. That is definitely the Nagari moment.
But
100% agree.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Bao, remember that cleanse from before? Now the flash is down. Solar Flare comes through. There's a lot of CC available here. Grand entrance, that's pretty cool, but I think Faker can actually survive this pretty comfortably, and now Becca has to escape. Sulker going to move on down. He's been putting out fires this entire game. Now they're just zoning DRX away from this situation. 4 versus 2. Pyosik is on the top side of the map. And now T1 should be able to at least finish up this outer turret, as Bubble's going to connect as well at the same time. And yeah, it's a lot of damage with these piercing arrows as Duskblade already completed for Teddy.
You know what makes matters worse is the fact that we're looking at an Infernal Drake. Zoe, Akali,
Varus?
And Varus with Infernal Drake is, I think the words we're looking for is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, we could get more eloquent than that, but that's what it will always boil down to.
Sometimes the more simple option is the best.
I tend to agree.
Why use a large word when a small one will suffice, you know?
That is a reference, but I'm not entirely sure what to, but I know the original quote.
Yeah, it's an oldie. An oldie, but a goodie. As, okay, Teddy, coming back into this mid lane, he'll tidy this one up. Top lane out of turrets, also very weak. In fact, they've got turrets ready to fall across the map here on T1's side. The map control coming out yet again. This has certainly been their strength throughout this series.
And coming into this game, we talked about T1. If they find leads, their comp is, or their draft rather, is so good at running over. And this is something that we see even here with Kana getting taken low, but King and Frozen, his entire rotation, doesn't actually get it. And this is a change to Akali, right? The second activation of her E has so much damage now. It's no longer like a 50-50. It's a super backloaded ability where the second the going in actually gives you all the damage that you need. The punish is really nice from Pyosik, but the damage is already done. Akali getting fed is a problem in of itself. And here you benefit from Carrias and Teddy's impeccable laning presence that they've had the entire game. And honestly, there isn't that much that you can do as the DRX bot lane, because with this matchup, you're gonna be shoved in. If you get shoved in, like, at some point, Leona's gonna hit something, and you need to cleanse, and there's nothing you can do. And that is the kind of inevitability that T1 have kind of lacked in the earlier game drafts, and I'm happy to see them move away from it. I still think this draft is quite a big risk, but at least they're playing to back it up, whereas in the early games we saw tonight, not the case. Whereas DRX, it's 3K, it's not insurmountable, but playing against the Zoe that's this fat and looking at the Infernal Soul of all things is rough.
It is. 2 items already completed as well. Horizon Focus are done as now Cuz going to get engaged on in the bouncy castle and not going to be pulled back by that shockwave as Cuz is going to ulti out. Solka takes a bit of damage from the Paddle Star, but will remain alive. And T1 also going to get out of there. Okay, Pyosik now should be able to find Teddy. The flash comes through, but the stun is going to be there. Pyosik ohm-wrecks the turret, and Bao will survive in the end. The last auto will be denied.
So close to get the counter kill, but nice play by DRX. This is what you need to do. You need to find these moments where T1 is not paying attention and slow the tempo of the game down. If you get into a situation 10 minutes in from now and you somehow can deny this Infernal Soul, then you can start looking for fights, right? Then you item deficits don't matter as much. You have the Fed Ezreal where there could be Carrier and Kana getting on top of you, but it should be way harder than otherwise is the case. Take a so fed.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. However, not enough to take down Solka through his Command Protect. As we have a look at this one more time, Teddy just a little too far forward.
It's greedy, right? He just wants to get the Q. He wants to see the big damage numbers pop up over the Ezreal. Understandable, but that one ward gives him a false sense of security, moves too far upward. Well, like if it's a wave, you're like, okay, sure, Teddy, but this was just Q and bound. No, it's not worth it.
No, not really.
It's understandable, sure.
Can still very comfortably clear out these waves, though, not the end of the world for T1 whatsoever. 2 minutes on that Infernal Soul point, one of our earliest souls available so far this series. We remember in Game 1, took forever before a soul was even available. And now it's going to be ticking on up at about 24 minutes or thereabouts. Riftmaker done for Canna as well. Fair bit of damage available for the Akali, but I want to see DRX utilize their comp effectively. Actually find that dive into the backline. Expose Teddy for the complete lack of peel that he has. And Pyosik going to find Cuz here. Takes a bit of damage, as you can see. And he's pretty tanky, is good old Volibear. Canna splitting on the bottom side of the map. And the more T1 split DRX up, the more difficult it's going to be for DRX to win the game.
Oh, okay. Actually, really, really healthy there, Becca. Bone plating.
Yeah.
Really nice. Gives you a lot of more survivability, as we see. The poke from T1 not really sticking. But it doesn't matter. It's all about what happens in the next minute. And DRX, I love that they try and set up vision here, because you need vision. You need to make sure that you know where the poke is coming from. You need to shove out these waves in the mid and bot lane. Then you need to set up maybe even a possible flank for King, and so that he can teleport in. Because if Becca, Pyosik or King don't fight backline axes, then the fight against T1 becomes impossibly hard. Someone needs to die. It might be Teddy, it might be Faker, but when that fight starts, it can't be even.
Yeah, it just becomes extraordinarily difficult for T1 to survive if DRX are able to actually get a fight on their terms. But still, I mean, when the snowball starts, you mentioned, like, this is a risky draft, but the early game has gone the way T1 wants it to. Maybe not quite to the extent that they would have liked, but Soul Point is the thing that is so incredibly important, especially when it's this Infernal Soul that will absolutely help this team so much. King in. Needs more of an R-bar here. See where he can actually gather it as Faker. Fair bit of poke right now as well, as Becca Might not even be able to quickness in now with that health bar. Carrier also getting poked. Ezreal, certainly a champion that can do so as well, but DRX just bullied out of the area. They know that they don't have the health bars to challenge this, and is this... It's just Infernal Soul stolen away. The backs are even stopped. Ahsoka is in trouble. He does find a defensive shockwave. No! Flashes his way out and he survives. Somehow they trade supports. That's not the target that they were looking for, so definitely a sick play is now Canna. Off to the side, he's looking for Kingan, ults his way through and then gets back to the Shuriken. Not able to lock that one down. But T1 now have just so much more value in this composition. The Infernal Soul is so strong, but DRX demonstrating that they have still got fight left in him.
Oh, that's a big teleport, Kingan, if he can get his Narbar.
Yeah, it's in a pretty good position right now, but you can see Cuz just going to try and execute Bao. Bao, he's out of this fight, burning down with the red buff as Faker locks down Kingan as well. Cuz is fighting 1 versus 3, by the way, and this is why DRX needed to try and go for that reset. They had their back stopped, and Cuz says absolutely not, my friend. And now Pyosik at the mercy of T1. The huge piercing arrow is going to connect and connect again as Beck is now in so much trouble. He has to get back to his fountain, and T1, oh my goodness, that was revolting.
T1 is just playing Duck Hunt. They're just sitting there, they're shooting skill shots, and DRX, they can't actually get on top of the carries, and here you see why this kind of composition is so oppressive. DRX themselves have showed it why these poke comps can do so much, and an Infernal Soul again is a worst case scenario because it means that no matter what you do, unless you straight up win the fight right from the get-go, you can't match the damage, you can't match the elongated fights in a very different way than an Ocean Soul does, but still just as debilitating. And Mouth, here goes the Baron, and sieging with this composition and an Infernal Soul is a nightmare for DRX.
Yeah, they have to now deal with absolutely everything and the kitchen sink, as we are going to have a look at this replay once again. Carrier, I mean, it was ultra optimistic, but Sulker actually surviving here was just insane.
It was really nice. I was just shocked by what is about to happen, where Kaz is like, actually no, this is the line. I can go in here, because he runs away, and I'm like, nope. What is this? Hecarim, I might have reminded you, Hecarim was nerfed, and yes, this is a fat Hecarim. Yes, he has the Infernal Soul available, but he's building full tank.
Yeah, Infernal Soul, pretty revolting. As we're going to have a look at live here, Carrier looking for Kingan, he'll find it. Oh my god, Teddy, that damage is ridiculous. And the Gnar is very, very dead, just not able to be pushed up in a side lane here. But what option do you have as DRX? Kingan obviously just trying to deny as much value for this Baron as possible, but it's already netted them a 2,000 gold Baron power play.
Pyosik is getting the scuttle though.
Right,
that's something. And I say it facetiously because there is nothing that DRX can do. They are fully at the mercy of T1, and unlike game number 1 where it felt like DRX always had the angle, but T1 just mechanically outmuscled them, and game number 2 where clearly DRX were the better team, it just feels like they're at the mercy of whatever T1 decides to do. And if T1 don't go for a huge overextension, if they don't start grouping up, if they keep dragging and like stretching out these team fights, keep poking and playing it slow, it's so hard for DRX to get anything done.
It's certainly looking like it. Chronicler, this is such a struggle for DRX, who now have an exposed inhibitor in that mid lane. True Shot Barrage just to try and help with these minions, but with the Baron buff, it's so difficult. Chains of Corruption, go to Narnia, but it's not even, I think, actually going to be relevant, to be perfectly honest. Cuz trying to find an opening, does have everything available, and he's just going to settle for locking up this inhibitor. Solar Flare comes out now as Becca. Now with the quickness, in goes Carrier, goes Golden as well. Look at the AoE, it's revolting! Bao will just get tidied up by this horse. The perfect execution to get right on top of all these carries. That's a very, very quick ace. You blink and you'll miss it, and T1 are in round 2 of the playoffs.
And it was a valiant effort from DRX. I still insist that they played better than any of us had expected. This team was slumping, they gave it their all.